Friday. Oh, it feels good to be going into a weekend, and um, I love the weekends. I love getting time to kind of refuel so that I can feel like I have fresh stuff for you guys for the next week and um, get to sleep in a little bit too. Anyway, well, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, but I want to go over first. I'm a little distracted because my dogs are scratching on my door because they want to be in here with me. But, honey, can you get the dogs? Um, I want to pick up where I left off yesterday, but I have your song for today and a weekend challenge that I want to give you first. And so the song, my dad actually texted me this morning. It's so good. I've been listening to it for the last half hour over and over again on repeat. But it's called You Know My Name. And I don't know if it's by her, but she sings it. Maybe it's also by her. Her name is Tasha, Tasha, Tasha Cobb Leonard. And it's just powerful. I listened to the live version, and in the light of what we were talking about yesterday and our identity, and how our identity is tied to blessing, and God gives us our identity by blessing us, as opposed to our circumstances giving us our identity. And he also ultimately will give us a new name, the real name that we were meant to have for all of eternity, how he sees us, who we really are beyond what the difficulties of life have kind of shaped us and given us our rough edges, so to speak. And so in that, there was a line in there that stood out to me. You know my name. You walk with me and you talk with me. You tell me that I'm your own. And so I just thought, even all that we learned yesterday, and if you didn't listen to it for some reason, the algorithms are really wacky on Facebook, and so I had like a fourth of the people that normally would watch a Facebook Choose Love. And so you might have to go back and find it on our Facebook page. But it was super powerful. And we talked about Jacob and how he was given a name based on the circumstances of his birth. He was supplanter and usurper. But that wasn't the real him, and he knew it. So he wrestled with God in this time of life that he was consumed with fear over going back to reunite with his brother, who knew him by his false identity. And before he went to meet his brother, he was like, I have to have God's blessing. I have to have his favor. And if I have his blessing, then everything's going to be okay. And so remember that in biblical days, more so than now, a blessing and a name totally connected to your identity. It was everything related to your identity. So he was basically wrestling God for his true identity, and he knew that only God himself could give it to him. And that wrestling with him, like our wrestling in life with God and with man, it produced in him this limp. He was permanently kind of bruised from it, and that's okay because he's worth it. And coming out on the other side of this earth experience where we will receive our new name and our new identity from our Papa, who is the one who knows us by our name. You know my name, God. I mean, it's just so powerful. So when you hear the simplicity of that song in the light of what we understand about our name and our identity and what it represents. And then, of course, we talked about the coolest thing, how after Jacob wrestled with God and prevailed and had a new name given to him, the name Israel, his new identity connected to literally the identity of an entire people group, the nation of Israel, even today, which affects the whole globe. So your identity and you wrestling in life with God, who's the only one who can give you your true, real identity, you wrestling through this is not the real me. The real me is hidden in him. And so I turn to him constantly for my real true identity. And in that wrestling process, day to day, year to year, it will impact literally the whole globe. There is no person who's ever existed that didn't completely matter, who wasn't completely relevant to all of life. We are all completely connected because we're made in his image. We're an expression of him. How can something, a person that he created, that he dreamed into existence, a spirit that came from within himself, that he had specific intentions and thoughts for and towards, not matter? How can you not matter? You do matter. And so you're wrestling in all that you're going through in life and choosing to continue to find yourself in him is worth it. It's worth it. It's going to be worth it. As I think it's Rita Springer that sings it. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. Okay, so I'm just going to read a very short thing to you from Rainbow God's 7 Colors of Love. I'm sorry I still don't have your discount code for that, so I'll have it next week. I'm on page 125, let's see, 127. And this will just speak for itself, but we're talking about the lie and the truth. I forgot, I wanted to go ahead and give you your weekend challenge too. Your weekend challenge is listen to Justin Bieber's new album called Freedom. I don't want to give it away, but he is ministering to his generation in the most powerful, important way. Like, even the timing of it is huge. So listen to it. I don't know if it's your style of music or not. I mean, it's done with so much excellence, and my daughters have taught me to really enjoy his sound. I love his voice. He's so talented. But hey, if you've never heard his mama sing, she has literally one of the most incredible voices I've ever heard in my life. One day, I believe you're going to hear it in a public way. But anyway, I got distracted on that. Justin Bieber's new album, Freedom. Listen to it. Hear it through the ears of his generation. I think it'll really minister to you and encourage you about what God's doing among a really important group in Hollywood and in that whole arts and entertainment industry. God's doing something powerful there. Okay, page 127. In every area of culture, there is a lie that, because of the broken system, is being perpetuated ultimately about God, which causes us to believe lies about him, but also about ourselves, because our identity is connected to his identity. How we see ourselves is connected to how we see him. And so it's important to identify the lie in each of these areas of culture, because if we don't know what's wrong with it, how will we know how to make it right? How will we know when we're actually reflecting the correct image and reputation of God in each area of culture? So we want to, when we bring change to the area of media and communication, we want to bring change that reflects the real him. I live to know the real him and to make the real him known, not the him that we experienced in broken culture. So in preparing to write my part of this chapter, I, Elizabeth, asked our 18-year-old daughter what lie she is tempted to believe about God when she watches the news or reads information on the internet. Without thinking at all, she easily identified the lie that God does not have a good plan for us. She explained how watching and listening to the stream of bad news and tragic stories causes her to have to remind herself that God is in charge, no matter how chaotic things get, and that he is good even when it temporarily seems like he isn't. As she said it, I realized how accurate her perception is. It's certainly not the media's fault that bad things happen, but in doing their job to make the facts available to the public and present them in an unbiased way, even what is called responsible reporting can propagate a lie about God. When information is presented as a matter of fact, apart from a compassionate and heartfelt response, we're left to assume that is God's heart. that he is distant and focused on the facts, untouched by what is happening all around him, so to speak. With reporters unaware of it, they speak, and our hearts translate their words as the curse of all curses. My God, if he exists, is all about the facts. And like a good journalist, he never gets involved so as not to taint the reality of the mess I've made or am the victim of. Some of the most impacting and historical moments in journalism are of famous professional news anchormen who, when having to report on a national tragedy, were moved to a quivering voice or the hint of tears. Why were we so touched by those moments? Because they are so very rare, and our hearts inwardly long for the news of our world to connect to the heart of a God who cares, is compassionate, and is manning the steering wheel of this journey through history. This lie that God does not have a good plan for us is also perpetrated against him in another way. As with all good things, there is always a downside. The downside to such easily accessible mass media is that we are exposed to much more negativity than a soul was meant to bear. For this reason, several years ago, I decided to stop watching the news. I used to keep the news channel going almost all the time in our home until I realized how much it was stressing me out. I was so used to that feeling that I didn't even realize it until I noticed how my hands lightly trembled, actually they still do, from too much adrenaline. Johnny explained it to me like this one day. God gives us access to all we need in him to get through whatever we go through if we want his help. Okay? God gives us access to all we need in him to get through whatever we go through if we want his help. That is called his grace, or his power that enables us to do what is needed in any given circumstance of life. His grace is available when we need it for what we're personally going through. Grace is not available for what we fear we may go through, nor what we watch someone else go through. So when we constantly feed on a steady diet of hardships of others, we do so apart from the grace needed to get through it. It's not our crisis, therefore we don't have the grace for it. We watch in horror and at least subconsciously connect it in such a way that it registers on our psyche and on our body as if we were the ones going through it. We encounter someone else's pain and translate our response as if it were our reality, a reality of tragedy without God's grace to get through it or see what he's doing in the midst of it. Once I weaned myself from the onslaught of sad stories that I couldn't do anything directly about, I was able to focus on accessing a fresh perspective of the grace of God that is always with me for whatever I'm going through or will go through in the future. I'm able to better understand and recognize how he was with me in the middle of my life storms and how he used them to show me the truth about who he is and how much he cares for me. The intimacy with him that I've gained through the trials have made the storms worth it and allowed me to embrace pain as an opportunity to know the real God. Once you can see that for your own life, you're able to see that for others as well. When you learn to find his goodness in your own pain, you can easily find it in someone else's. We would not have been able to serve as pastors for almost 15 years if we hadn't begun to learn this. It's impossible to help others when you're either trying to rescue them from something God isn't It's impossible to help others when you're either trying to rescue them from something God isn't rescuing them from, or you're feeling just as hopeless as they are. You can give someone hope when you yourself know that everything is an opportunity to see an aspect of the goodness of God you haven't seen before. And his goodness is seen in the plan that he has for us. So on Monday, I'm going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the truth that can be put into motion through media and through the ways that we communicate personally and individually in our areas of influence. So I'm going to pray over you, and I'm cutting it a little shorter than I usually do. Some of you will be glad, because today we are beginning our celebration of our 33rd anniversary, And it's actually tomorrow, but we're gonna just celebrate all weekend. So I get the weekend with my man, my Mr. Wonderful. Um, so let's pray. God, we're just in awe of how intentional you've been, how all encompassing you've been to hide yourself with such humility in some ways, in such obvious ways, in all of these areas of culture. And we just look at specifically your face as communicator. You want to be known. You know us. You want us to know the real you, your true identity, your correct reputation. And yet in your humility, you've shared your reputation with us. You've allowed us the privilege of discovering who you are and then learning how to display who you are. And even though we've done such a bad job of it, you work with us, you're patient with us individually and as a generation, and you're patient with society as a whole. And there's a good reason why you are, and we trust that reason. And in some ways, we see we are so much like you, and we love who we're discovering that we are because of who we're discovering that you are. But yet we look at you and we see you are so other than us. You are so perfect in all of your ways. You're so holy. You're so you're over it all, and you are the master conductor who is making it all into this beautiful song and sound. And we anticipate in our hearts, and we sense the magnificence of it all, the beauty and the power behind the story that you're telling, and the part that each one of us is getting to play, and the role that we have, that each one of us has, not only in your heart, but the role that we have in history, and in this thing that you put into motion called time. And so thank you for our true identity. Before we even know it ourselves, we anticipate it, we're excited about it, and we recommit ourselves to this wrestling process. We're wrestling with God and with man, and in this journey of wrestling and the pain that comes with it, we're learning who you are, and we're learning who we are. And we declare with our mouths, you are worth it all. You are worth it all. We love you, we bless you, we honor you, we praise you. Thank you for blessing us. In your name, Jesus. Amen. Okay, well, have an amazing weekend, and just go in deep with your papa. Whatever it is you're doing, if you have time to steal away with him, or if you just have a busy weekend, just include him in it. Have those little conversations throughout the day, and just remember, he knows your name. He knows the real you. See ya Monday.